It's absurd. It's an utter absurdity that a director should be mentioned over the singers of the production. Sorry, that's a fact. And that's got to change, or opera is going to die on the vine.
It will, because opera is about, once again, great singing. Hey, we get to do another opera episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Great.
Great.
Classical
Rebellion. So our first opera episode was about Aida, the A of the ABCs, and believe it or not,
believe it.
Our second episode is the B of the ABCs of opera,
La Boheme.
La Boheme. Now we didn't plan that. It's just, we're gonna have to talk about Carmen next. Okay. Well,
okay. Well, we'll find somebody's.
So
Carmen
La Boheme currently playing at LA Opera. And then it's coming up in October at Symphony of the Mountains, which is in northeast Tennessee.
Sort of midway between, Charlotte and Knoxville.
Yeah, so Charlotte's down here, and Knoxville's here, and then the Symphony of the Mountains is here, and West Virginia, Kentucky.
So this is a symphony that serves like the rural
kind of the region,
rural region. There's really not much out where they are. And I mean, it's important to have symphonic activity out in areas like that. They're in the Appalachians, basically.
Right. And then it's also being performed in December. Now, we're way early for the one in December in Naples, Florida. But the reason we're doing Naples, Florida is my operatic mentor is the executive director at Naples Opera. That would be Timothy Todd Simmons. He was the chorus master here in San Diego for several years. I was his church soloist for somewhere between 3 and 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I took voice with him. I had coachings with him. He is the first person who told me my CD collection sucked. In so many words. He came over for dinner, he and his wife, Kate, and he was looking at my operas going, oh, that's too bad. And I'm like, because I was proud of my CD collection and the operas that I had. I had a lot of repertoire. What I didn't have was really any great singers.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of straight down the middle.
Well, that depends on
three tenors type stuff.
It depends on what you mean by great.
What I mean, what
Todd means by great?
What Todd means by great is singers of the old style.
Right.
And if you don't know that, the best place to go find out about singers of the old style is a channel called This Is Opera. That YouTube channel, in my opinion, is doing some of the most important work in the arts currently happening anywhere.
We're plugging another channel right now.
It's so important.
But it is very informative.
Yes.
Very, very informative.
It teaches you how to listen to those old recordings, how to hear the voice in those old recordings, because it compares it to modern voices, and it is...
Well, for instance, a high note doesn't just exist unconnected from the other registers of the voice.
Right.
If it does, you've got problems when you're not singing that high note. It has to proceed and emerge from the unified registers as you move through them, and be supported by those registers. And if it's not, then basically you have a one-trick pony, which is, you can't hear him when he's singing down here, and the minute he opens his mouth on a high note, it pops out like a 4th of July firework.
And more than likely, the high note is going to be a reinforced falsetto that maybe doesn't even vibrate with the vibrato like the rest of the voice does. Mm-hmm. And it's bad news. And I don't, my hope is that through the efforts of This Is Opera, through our efforts, that eventually over time we can bring back that style of singing. The problem is, are the teachers out there?
We're sort of mired in a very inconsistent generation of of singers, and their virtues are by and large spotty and they're not fully unified voices. Mm-hmm. Is I guess what the implication of that is.
It is, and the more you learn about the old, when I say old singers, I'm pretty much talking about mid-70s and older.
Right.
There were some fantastic singers in the 70s and 80s. Gena Dimitrova, Elena Obostrova, most of the Ovas.
Well, I think a divide between the methodical understanding, a good illustration of that is that there are two wonderful books which I recommend to anybody to read, and if you do read them both, you will see the differences in schools of singing. One is available from Dover Press.
Okay.
And it's actually a combination of two books. It's quite narrow. It's only about like that.
I know which one you're talking about.
It's called Great Singers on the Art of Singing. And it's a compilation of interviews with singers of the turn of the century, of the turn of the last century. People like Alma Gluck and David Bispham, who was a famous oratorio baritone, John Charles Thomas, people like that, talking to them about their technique. And then there's Jerome Heinz's book,
right,
which was produced in the 1980s called Great Singers on Great Singing. And
there are some great singers in that book.
There are some great singers in that book, but there are also singers like Louis Quilico, for instance, who had no idea how he did what he did.
Right.
No idea. He's a freak of nature. It just came out. It was a great voice.
Okay.
But if you go back to those earlier singers, they understood perfectly well exactly how they produced every part of their voice. And many of them were pianists. What's her name? The Amelita Gallicurci studied at the Milan Conservatory to be a concert pianist.
Okay.
Then she discovered her ability to sing coloratura and her range, and she gave up on being that and took up a career in opera. And she died right here in La Jolla, California, as well.
Oh, really?
Yes, she did. But
you're a wealth of information.
But other singers would say, I remember. I'm trying to remember which soprano it was. It might have been Lillian Nordica. Said when she gave. He said it's good to be able to play your own accompaniments, because not only does it deepen your understanding of the vocal line and its interaction with the music, with the instrumental part, but people find it so impressive when you can accompany yourself. Well, yeah, true. I guess they do. But when was the last time you saw a major operatic performer accompany themselves at the piano with any degree of capability?
Yeah.
Now, Domingo can play, but he's never done it as far as I mean, he's never accompanied himself. That's the difference. That you're getting to the point where there are singers who no longer really technically understand what they're doing.
That was me.
Well, I don't claim to be perfect. I don't have.
But I learned. I
don't have a bomber voice, but I do believe that my voice is pretty well integrated throughout my registers. Yeah. And otherwise, I wouldn't still, at 56, I wouldn't still be able to sing as well as I'm singing.
Yeah.
Not as much as the stuff I've sang. So I heartily recommend those books. But this gets to your point about...
Well, LA Opera. So all of their publicity leads with the stage director.
Sorry.
Opera's not about the stage director. It never has been, and it never will be.
It's not about directors. Sorry, directors. Nobody cared who was directing Caruso.
Nobody cared who was directing any singer until, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
No, it starts with it starts in the 19. It starts with Wieland Wagner's who it starts with.
Yeah. But there's still some great singers.
Wagner has to come into it, doesn't he? No, but then it gets into Franco Zeffirelli and cinematic production.
Yeah, you're right.
A generation of huge, deep stage productions designed specifically for the Metropolitan Opera House that nobody else has the capacity to fit into their theaters. And now they don't have the finances to rent them, even if they could.
Yeah.
That is over. The Zeffirelli era is well and truly over.
Right. And here's why that era is over. I'm going to point at this camera right now and lay it down. Are you ready?
You tell them.
Because there are no great singers to put into those productions. I do not care about the production if the singer isn't great.
Opera is principally and firstly about singing. Everything has to go through the lens of the singing.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the way it is.
It is. And what's happening now, I don't want to get too caught up in this. I want to talk about La Boheme.
No, well, we will. But, I mean, this is an important statement.
It is.
Because I would take you back to sometime in the last 15 years. I think it was shortly after I came back from England, probably in 2003, 4, sometime around then. There was an interview with Cheryl Milnes in Opera News. And he says right up front, where are the bomber baritones?
Right.
Where are they? Where are the bomber voices? Because I don't hear any. And this was almost probably 15 years ago that he gave this interview.
Right.
And he's like, there's got to be somebody coming along after voices like mine who are going to be able to fill this opera house, or they're going to have to get a different opera house.
Yeah.
Because
it's going that direction.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily I don't necessarily have a problem with the Metropolitan downsizing. I mean, that house for my money, it's too big, because in America, we don't have a multi-tiered opera system. Our opera industry exists in multi-use civic theater barns that all fit 3,000 people. Those are huge halls.
There's a few exceptions, but...
Well, a few. Yeah. Not like Germany, where you've got like a few large houses, many medium-sized houses, and even more 600-seat houses. Right. And they're still doing Aida in 600 seats.
Yeah. Speaking of Aida, I just saw a promotional video from La Scala about a production that was maybe last year. I don't know where. I was messing around on the internet and saw it. In that video, guess who's mentioned? The director. And none of the singers are mentioned by names.
At La Scala.
At La Scala, the home of opera.
It's absurd. It's an utter absurdity that a director should be mentioned over the singers of the production. Sorry, that's a fact. And that's got to change, or opera is going to die on the vine.
It will, because opera is about, once again, great singing. So La Boheme.
Yeah.
It's a fantastically crafted opera.
Oh, it's the best.
Pagliacci is also...
Yeah, but the Pagliacci's kind of short.
True.
Boheme is a fully developed 4-act opera, even if the second act is short. It's got 4 full acts. Yeah. Or 3 if you want to do it as the second act as a continuation of the first. But the thing about Puccini's writing in Boheme that is so affecting is that if you look at the score of Boheme, there are changes in dynamics, in tempo, in key. It's in every single measure. He's speeding up, he's slowing down, he's changing the dynamic, he's changing the key, the variety of musical expression in any Puccini score, this is what really makes Puccini. Yeah. He never goes on in the same vein for long. He's introducing a new curve in the music, a new curve in this sculpture that he's making. It's just wonderful writing.
Yeah. And for those who, if maybe this is the first time you've seen La Boheme, maybe it's your first opera. There are going to be people who go to these productions, it will be their first opera.
Sure.
Here's a little key to understanding specifically the first act, I think, because Rodolfo and Mimi meet and then they fall in love, right? But that's not really, so it's not like, hey, I've seen you, we fall in love, and now we're committed together and we're going to be together, and that's how it goes. This is what's being, I'm going to make a comparison here. So Rodolfo sings an aria about himself. This is who I am. The words qui son.
Who am I? Who am I?
Yeah, he actually says, "This is who I am." I'm a dreamer.
You're asking who I am.
Yeah, I'm a poet. I live on my dreams of castles in the air. But now your beautiful eyes have stolen. And then he says, "Tell me about yourself." And Mimi sings her aria, and I like to embroider flowers. And my real name is Lucia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She says, they call me Mimi, but my real name is Lucia. Right. She says, I'm a good girl, but I don't always go to Mass.
Right. And then they sing this duet. Never before have I been felt this love before, like they're in this deep love. What that was in a movie would be a montage of dates. Right? So you'd see them walking their dogs together. Right. You'd see them eating, going to the park. You'd see them at the beach doing something cute.
But this is opera and it has to be compressed.
You can't have a montage of scenes, but the compression in the movies happens the same way in actually less time than those 2 arias and duets. Because those 2 arias with the duets, about 15 minutes, I'd say.
Oh, Soave Fanciulla, that's the duet. That's the duet. But Puccini manages to paint the unfolding development of this relationship in one duet.
Yeah.
He paints that whole, because by the time, then we go to the Café Momus, it's Christmas Eve, the Paris is out, everybody's out, and they arrive on the scene. and they're together.
Yeah.
They are together.
Yeah.
And
so it's not that they fell in love in 15 minutes.
No.
It's a device that Puccini is using, and it should be clear now what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second act of Boheme is one of the great. It's only 18 minutes, but it's one of the most. It's so full with characters and the chorus, little chorus parts coming in and out, and the toy seller comes in, and the band, the local guards beating retreat, and the kids following him around, and Musetta's little scene with her old stage door Johnny.
Yeah. Stage door Johnny.
It's just it's a miracle of writing, and
it is. And little gems of true human emotion, like when Rodolfo's talking about,
absolutely.
I've got a rich aunt. He's trying to kind of show off a little bit, and buys Mimi the one necklace that she wants, even though he can't afford it, really.
Right.
And then that whole thing with Alcindoro and Musetta and Marcello.
And I was going to say, before we leave their apartment, there's a wonderful tradition. At the end, as they're singing Soave Fanciulla, Marcello comes back to find out what the heck's taking him so long.
Hey.
And so he's off stage. He says, "Hey, Rodolfo," and Rodolfo answers, and he says, "I'm coming in a minute," like that. And they all laugh, and they say, "Yeah, he's like, I'm working," and he's like, "Yeah, he's working," like that. And he says, "Also, Soave Fanciulla," and off stage twice. Marcello gets to sing "Trovo le poesia,"
that's right.
And it's a great tradition for the baritone holds that as long as he can to try to intrude on the duet from outside. It's just like that. And I remember when I got to do it, my friend Jeff Kaloff was off stage going, "Hold it out, louder, yeah." And I was like, I'm giving it all I got.
Yeah.
So it's great fun. There's so much fun to be
John
had.
tenors hate that.
That's why I did it.
And then we come to the third act.
One of the best acts in opera. One of the best acts in opera.
If you wanted to give someone an example of what opera is, give them some context. These are two couples who've fallen, one's with each other, one's fallen out.
Yeah, and the great the trajectories of this act. Yeah. Marcello and Musetta are together, and Mimi comes in, and then Marcello's talking, and Rodolfo and Mimi have split up, and then as the act goes along, it ends up with Rodolfo and Mimi getting back together, and Marcello and Musetta have a fight and break up.
Right.
And it's just the gradual shift in that act is so beautifully crafted. It's about 35 minutes, something like that.
But the music, oh my gosh!
I mean, I used to love that when Marcello gets to lecture. He used to lecture Rodolfo. He says, "You're bad tempered. You're a pig." And he's like, "You're so stubborn."
Right.
Like.
And jealous.
And then it turns out that Musetta's, she's sick.
Mimi.
That Mimi's sick.
Yeah.
She comes in and it's winter.
That reveal is so gut-wrenching.
Oh my gosh! Because Rodolfo has to say, "Look, I saw her. It's better that she stay with the new boyfriend because he'll be able to give her more care than I can because she's sick." And Mimi overhears this.
Right.
She doesn't even really realize that she's got TB and that she's gonna die.
Yeah.
And.
Yeah.
It's absolutely heart-wrenching. Yeah. And he said at the end, he says, "We'll stay together until spring."
Because no one's alone in spring.
Yeah.
No one feels alone in spring.
Oh, God.
No, it's beautiful. The duet with Mimi and Marcello into Mimi's aria, and then Rodolfo comes in, and then the quartet is phenomenal because you've got this big arching line for Mimi and Rodolfo, while Marcello and
they're bickering back and forth, and they're fighting with each other, and he calls her a bitch.
Yeah.
Strega.
The Shermer English calls that a hellcat.
Hellcat, yeah. But then, now here's the thing. So obviously, Mimi dies at the end. She dies. She and Rodolfo get back together on her deathbed, and he's putting her. But the humanization of Musetta, because she's been a flighty little hellcat the whole show, tormenting Marcello, but she turns into an angel of mercy at the end. And she and Marcello get back. And Marcello is,
shaken.
He's very shaken by the whole thing, and so it's a tragedy. But then there are also many human triumphs in it, humane triumphs. But there's also so much humor. And when I did the 1986 Boheme at San Diego Opera, that was the first time we had, 87. It was the first time that we had super titles. And a lot of people were... See, here's the thing. Wagner turned down the lights in the theater in 1876 at Bayreuth, and they didn't come back up again because the audience used to read the words. They had a book, and they used to read the words. The audience didn't start reading the words again until super titles on television first, subtitles, and then super titles in the theater. And there were people laughing at the jokes. And this was something that nobody had ever heard.
Right.
A whole audience laughing at the jokes.
Yeah.
And at the humor of it. What a big reveal. And a lot of people were kind of put off. They're like, well, I don't think this is right.
You don't laugh at opera.
Don't laugh at opera.
No.
But now we have recovered through this technology.
Now we just need the singers.
Now we just need the singers back. But if you haven't ever seen a Boheme, go see it. You'll love it, I predict. There's a lot to love.
Yeah, you will. You will. It's impossible to ruin that show. It's like pizza and sex. Classical rebellion.
Classical rebellion. It's like pizza and sex.
Oh.